hosting this session and for your support for the Power Platform Global Bootcamp. And we have Richu, who is a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. And many of you might have already familiar with him. And it's over to you, to Richu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Parimal, and a very good morning to all of you. First of all, sincere apologies for starting a bit late. We intend to start by 10:30, but the keynote got delayed due to some technical issues. But however, we are here. So we will basically be talking about Power Automate. But before I start talking about Power Automate, what I intend to do is that you need to understand a little bit of a background about yourself, right? Because there are like around more than 60 people in this. So I will definitely not ask you to all unmute and speak about it. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to share a screen, right? Can you see my screen? Which basically is a menti.com portal. And if you just can start putting the code and then start answering few of the questions. I have only 3 questions just to understand what is the background. So if you join and then select the answer, maybe I will have some idea about your job role. If it is a bit too fast, I can start again. Let's see. Right. So there is no right answer. You can see cross mark that says that there is no right answer. It's just a multiple choice thing, right? So you select what is your job role. No role is right role. So let's move on. So this is the second one. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just quickly check about your experience in Power Platform. So have you worked on Power Platform? Yes or no? Simple. And there is no harm if you are doing it for the first time. So we all learn one day. So that's all right. The willingness of learning is important, right? So that's what matters. And great. So there's a mixed audience. There are like more people who have worked on PowerPoint than people who haven't. But Power Platform is sort of like a technology for everybody. So you can quickly learn and then quickly build an application by yourself, right? So let me just close this and start my discussion. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to walk you through the Power Platform. But before that, I will share my screen, complete screen, so that I don't have to switch between the desktops. So let me do that over here. And let me share my desktop. Can you see my screen? Hopefully, yes, you can see my screen. And
yes, Richu. We are good.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do is that there is nothing to get serious about it. I have got a machine. So just imagine that I have got a machine. This is a use case I want to begin my discussion with, right? So there is a machine, and that machine can be anywhere. So imagine that machine is in your on-premises. That machine could be in Azure, could be in AWS, could be in GCP, anywhere. You work on that machine, and if you use this machine in a cloud kind of environment, it charges you based on the CPU time, right? And the resources you use or resources you block. For example, for this machine, it is in Azure. It's a Linux, Ubuntu Linux machine. I use it for my development purpose. You can see that it's a Linux Ubuntu server 18.04 LTS, which is right now at this point in time is in a connected mode, which means that it is started, right? It is now working. Now imagine that I close my laptop and I came out of the office and I am in a bus going back to home in a normal situation, not in COVID, but in a normal situation, that is the case, right? And then I remember that it's a heavy, resource heavy machine, and it charges a lot every minute I spend on this machine. Maybe I use it for data mining activity, right? So it requires a lot of RAM, a lot of memory, and it's a high configuration machine. So it charges a lot. So every minute I don't use this machine, it's a loss to my company because they need to pay for it. So I need to shut down. I forgot to shut down. Now, one of the things you can do in many cloud is that schedule a shutdown process. So for example, I schedule my shutdown at generally 9 p.m. in the night. But let's say you leave the office by 5 p.m. So from 5 to 9, it is 4 hours, your machine is still running. So how do you really go back into the portal and shut down? So there are many ways. Now, I find a quick way of doing it is by probably dropping an email. So you see that this is a small shell script which is running, which basically tells that this VM is running. So you notice the VM name. It just will keep telling you every second that it's running. That's all. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to run this side by side and then show you the experience. Now, I've got a mailbox here. So you can see that this is a Office 365 mailbox. And what I can do, I can just drop an email to myself. You can do that. So you can just send an email to yourself. So that's what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put a subject line as shutdown. I can make it more effective by putting the VM name, etc. That's an advanced stuff. And then I can just drop an email, say, please shut down my machine. If I do that, you notice here this bash script, which is running in the left-hand side of my screen, and the email, which is in the right-hand side. I say send here. The email goes. Now, what happens at the back end is that the email goes to a mailbox. In this case, this is the mailbox, right? Because I am only using one. So you can send an email from Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, doesn't really matter. It needs to reach this mailbox. So the to has to be a specific email address. So ideally, it should be, let's say, IT support backend email address, or it can be an email address, which is basically a central mailbox of your company. Now, the email has been received, right? You can see that the email has been received, right? This is there in my inbox. So if I see the inbox, now what happens, you notice here the bash, it still shows the VM is running. So it is a live update of the VM state. And the moment the email is received in the mailbox, some background process kickstarts, and I will be explaining about it. And that's the topic of today, right? Some background process kickstart, and then it basically goes ahead and does something. So you can see that now the thing has changed. It says VM deallocating, right? From VM running to VM deallocating. I haven't touched anything. My mouse button cursor is not moving. I'm not using anything, to be honest, right? I can just tell you about that. And you can see that the VM deallocating. And once it is deallocated, so in a cloud scenario, you don't just shut down the machine, you deallocate. That means you release all the public resources like public IP addresses, etc. That reduces a lot of cost. And generally in the dev kind of scenario, you do a lot of this kind of, not in production, but in the dev kind of scenario. So you can see that the VM deallocated. And then once this is kind of over, what it's going to do is that it will show you that the VM is now deallocated. And you get a mail reply from your backend. And it says that, you can read whosoever it is. It says Namaskara. It says that's what it's done. And then Vadaguru, and then my name. I tried my best to write something in Kannada. So apologies if it is wrong. But this is what it returns. So this is all automated. I haven't touched anything. I just send any simple email with a shutdown as a subject line, and it can be anything. A shutdown word needs to be present in the thing. That's the criteria I did. Now let's see what happens when I do that, right? So I come over here and open this, probably this browser, and then I open something like over here, and I go into a resource group, and I would like to show you how it looks like. Okay, so let me say that, shut down the VM. Now, Power Automate is about creating a workflow which will take some action step by step, right? Think of it from any business process automation perspective, right? If you have used BizTalk or if you have heard of BizTalk, you can think of it as a mini BizTalk, right? It does a lot of things one by one. There are many different ways to build this kind of workflow solution. There are solutions available in the market, so I'm not going to compare them, but there is an Azure service which is available, which is similar to what we will be talking in Power Platform, is known as Azure Logic Apps. So I will just show you how the designer looks like. So if you see here, and you see that I have got 3 steps. And the first step says that when a new email arrives, where? That's what I have modified here. In the inbox for this mailbox, you can see that I have signed up here when I designed this. So I said that this is the mailbox where the email needs to arrive, and with any importance, because if I choose it is a very important one, then only the email with the very important flag will be filtered. So I will not have my virtual machine shut down. Okay. Now you can see that the subject line contains a word called shutdown, and then it checks that mailbox in every 1 minute. So that's an automation. So it is a kind of pull mechanism. So it goes into that mailbox, checks every 1 minute and comes back and then finds an email, takes an action. If it doesn't find, it will not take any action. So you can see that the next action says that then deallocate the virtual machine. So in the cloud scenario, we don't just shut down the VM, we deallocate the VM. So it basically goes into the subscription. So I need to log into the subscription. So I logged into the subscription. And then what I did is that I said that what is the resource group, and these are all typical configuration based on the cloud or the platform you use. So forget about it. Just imagine that I mentioned which VM to shut down. That's it. I can also pick the VM name from the flow workflow, right? So I can say that, hey, this VM basically is in my in the subject line. So this VM name is part of the subject line. So I pick it up from the specific format and I shut down out of, let's say, hundreds of VMs I have. And then once this is successful, I go ahead and say reply. So this is a reply template I have created. I can actually pick up your name from the mailbox you send me an email from. So these are all, they're all dynamic field, which I can capture and then put it here. So I can even say that who is the sender here who sent me an email, right? So you can see that I see that from the new email arrives, right? I can pick it up like who the sender was. So you can see that all the email fields I can get out of that step. And then the from email address is the email address who sent me an email. So I can have that field over here instead of having generic greeting. I can basically have the person who sent me an email, right? So this is what I feel is kind of very effective. And then you see that it is a zero code. I don't have to write any code. Some of the scripts I have used is just to have the real-time view of what exactly it looks like. But the whole idea is that you are getting the value or the required work done without writing a single code. Think of it as a Lego block. So many of you have played, or your in your family there are kids who play Lego with Legos, right? And you know that Lego comes with generic blocks, and you can build anything out of it. And there are many innovative Lego players who build various nice designs you cannot imagine that can be happened with the Lego blocks. So this is the Lego block. So let's see how it looks like in the Power Platform. So let me just share the Power Platform here, and let me go to this. Okay, so the Power Platform is part of Office 365. So if you see that, if I go into the Office 365 portal, that is portal.office365.com, right? And I log in with my credential, and you see that all the apps and things I get out of that is available here. So if I click on all apps, it'll basically show up all the apps. And Power Platform is here available as Power Apps and Power Automate. So I will be talking about Power Automate. That's what I did over here. So may I request you to please mute yourself. I can hear people eating something, right? That also is going into everybody's mic. So please mute yourself. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how I have built that, right? But let's take a different example. Okay, let's take a different example of people, let's say, tweeting about this event now, because you know that this event is happening all across the globe. So now Sandeep also tweeted. You can see that Sandeep just gave us the keynote, and he tweeted using a hashtag called GPPB2020. Okay, that's a hashtag a lot of people across the globe is tweeting about, right? So you can see that even I tweeted about, I put the hashtag in my name, so that's why it's coming. So let's use this hashtag and see then how many people are tweeting. So let's pick up the hashtag. Now, when you do an automation, you need to say that how this automation will kickstart. Is it a manual call, or is it something like automated, or is it something like scheduled? Is it something on another action, right? What is that kind of thing which kickstarts that? So let's create a fresh one. Okay, so when I say that, I get this list of things. I see that I can start from an automated Cloudflow, an instant Cloudflow, and there are templates available because people have done that similar thing. What this template really offers is set of actions, or the steps you need to achieve something already there. So you don't have to find, or if you are doing it the first time, it really helps. So let's start from a blank, right? So I say that automated flow, and then I gave a name saying that demo Feb 20. Okay, it's not an ideal name, but it's okay to have. Then I will use a trigger, and then there are many triggers. So there could be a trigger when a new email arrives, when a new SharePoint item gets added, when a new backlog gets created in the DevOps. There could be many different triggers. You can see the list of triggers. Even you can observe your Gmail mailbox, and even see the RSS feed of a blog. So if you, let's say, monitor popular blogs like Scott Hanselman's blog, he does a lot of innovative blogging, and then you want to get notified when he blogs. You can either subscribe to his RSS, or you can have Power Automate created for yourself. But anyways, so we'll use Twitter as our thing to kickstart the process. Now, ideally, for the first time, it will ask you to log into the Twitter account, because Twitter happens via an user account. So I have done that. So it is not asking. So the second step comes in, and it says that what is the kind of keyword or the search text you are looking for? I'm looking for this. Let me increase the font size. I'm looking for this hashtag GPPB. That's Global Power Platform Bootcamp 2021, happening all across the globe. Now I say next. Now I've got a couple of options also available. Now, what is the next you want to do? Now, as soon as I get to it, let us put it in a backend, for example, Teams. So I can, in the Office 365, I can have Teams channel. So if I show you the Teams So if I go into Microsoft Teams, I can open Microsoft Teams in browser also, as well as in the desktop. So in the desktop, I'm using different login, hence I'm using browser. You can see that I can create different teams, right? I created this Power Bootcamp, and then I can create a new channel. So all of them I can do that. So let's create a new channel. Let's say PPB 2021, and then I just create this channel just now. It's a fresh channel. Okay, so all the other channel I created just to test if connectivity is working fine or not. So this is the channel I have created. So what I am going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and then say, let's use Microsoft Teams. And then in the Teams, there are a couple of things in this action you can do. You can get a message, you can post a message, right? You can just say, I want to post a message. And it asks you which team you are talking about, because I can have many different teams even in my login. So all the teams I have created in my login are showing up here, because when you use it for the first time, it asks you to enter the username and password you want to, because I have entered it. So it shows up and I say Power Bootcamp. And then what is the channel you want to pick it up? So you have many different channels. So general is the default channel which gets created. So I created this one just now, so I picked up. And here is what you want to really create a text. So I want to say that what is the who sent me, who did send this tweet. So I can just format that thing, so I can actually templatize the message. So I'm just saying that tweeted by, that's the Twitter, and I say when, and then I say it should be created by, but created at, okay, and then what. So not a very good one, but that's okay. I say tweet text. Now when I say tweet text, I can just mark it a little large, so it shows you large tweet text. That's most important to me. And then I say next step. If I want to, let's say, drop an email to somebody or some mailbox, I can do that. If I don't want to do that, I can finish my thing. So it's a simple activity. A tweet is getting posted, and it is getting posted to the Twitter, and then I'm reading through this automation. So I have not mentioned like what is the duration every time it will check, but it will keep on checking things, and then it will send me the message in that thing. So ready to go. So we'll see that what all flows I have. If I go to my flows, there are a couple of flows, and you can see that this is running, right? So if I go to the run history, if anyone now does any tweet, it will show up immediately. So let me do that. Okay, so let me GPPV my session on Power Automate. If I just type it and then send the tweet, actual tweet goes into the Twitter, and then it gets picked up. Now let's observe this channel. So what happens at the back end? The Power Automate is now running, and it is checking every time it finds this hash GPPB 2021, and then picks up that tweet, and then reads the text and all the fields you can read, and then create some sort of nice looking data for me, and then post it either in a data lake. So if you are doing a data mining, you will be putting it into a data lake kind of thing, or you can put it in a CSV file. In this time, I'm using another Office component that is Teams channel to post it in the Teams, and a lot of company does that. So they want to sense what their customers are talking about their product. For example, if you think about companies like Swiggy, Zomato, a lot of people outburst their frustration in the Twitter, right? Sometimes they also appreciate them. So they need to understand what people are really thinking about. So let's see what happened here. So if I just say refresh, and if the default duration is longer, it will take long, but let's see whether I have got anything here. And I just go ahead and see the duration here. Give me a moment. That should be fine. So let me do a quick test manually. So it got started. So you should always be doing a test. Now you can see that it kind of picked up something, right? Because this is a historical test view for the Power Automate. So anytime you have a Power Automate and they run, let's say, thousands of times, every run will be saved with all the data. So you can actually come over here and see what was the tweet it picked up. So it could be my tweet, or it could be somebody else's tweet, right? So it searched with that, and then you see here, I kind of came here, and there was a different person who tweeted, right? And then you can see that tweet language is Japanese, right? Provider tweeted by somebody, not me. And then if I close this and then see what exactly happened in the Teams, it went ahead and then pasted something in the Teams, right? So I can see that there's a nicely formatted text, which basically is an HTML format, which went ahead into the Teams. So Teams is, so you can see that in the Teams channel, there are multiple tweets, right? There are two people who are tweeting. Even if you tweet, it'll get captured over here. So you'll be able to see at the end of my session, this kind of is sort of like overflowed with a lot of messages, because there'll be a lot of people doing the tweet now at this point in time. And my Power Automate kind of getting things from live. So you can see that it failed a couple of times. I don't know the reason. You should figure it out why it failed, but it shows me that it ran for a couple of times, right? So it ran and then it picked up those tweets during that time. So it never get all the tweets, because Twitter is huge, so it gets only the current ones, right? And I want to also focus something over here. Now I used a couple of things. I used something to interact with Twitter, because I read the fields in the Twitter. I used something to interact with Microsoft Teams, because I posted things into the channel. If you think from an application development perspective, you have to build something. You have to call an API. You have to pass the secret key. You have to authenticate. All these things are not here, but they're actually here. And they're here in form of something called connectors. Okay, they call them as connectors. So there are default connectors available in Power Automate to plug and play many different components, because Power Automate itself doesn't give you anything. It basically integrates with many different outside or external applications or services. So here I have used Twitter, I have used Teams. You can even have, let's say, an Instagram picture upload and then post it in some other channel, right? You can do that. So there are connectors available. There are hundreds of connectors available, and it is growing. You can even build your own connectors. So if you do not find the connector already available, you can build that. So this is the list of connectors available, and you can see that it's huge, right? It is like a big list. So I just want to use the size of my screen, and you can see that the list of connectors, it's huge list. And there are many things you can do by using already existing connectors. But there could be scenarios where you have maybe a specialized application which has got a specialized API, which needs a specialized, let's say, authentication. Then you need to build your own connector. But if you're using something standard like SAP, like SQL Server, like Oracle, you might find already connector available to interact with those things, right? So these are the default connectors to help you interact with backend sources, take some action. So you have seen me earlier reading the mailbox. So I used Office 365 mailbox connector to read my mailbox. Otherwise, I have to call the web service, and then I have to basically read the value from the web service and then I have to post it somewhere. So it's a lot of coding. It's possible. And these connectors are basically those codings done for you by somebody, either Microsoft or third party who posted this. And you can notice here that there are things like premium, which basically is a paid one. So they will need to probably use some different license to get it. I am not quite sure about that, but there are connectors which is free and there are connectors which are premium. So if you, let's say, want to connect to SAP, definitely you need to have SAP license to connect to SAP. That's the primary thing. You cannot connect to anybody's SAP without having an access or license to connect to that SAP. So something like that you can think of, right? You can even connect to Word Online. So if you want to post something in Word Online, you can connect to GitHub, right? So if you want to observe the check-in and check-out, and then based on that, or fail test, you want to capture that, you can even have a connector for Facebook, right? You can have connector for YouTube. So if you maintain and manage YouTube channel, you can actually, as soon as you post a video, you can actually notify that in many different social media platform, let's say Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, that hey, there is a new video posted by you or somebody, and then you can just drop those things. You can do enormous amount of things. You just need to explore, right? What else? Now, what I didn't do here is that when I created that, I did not cover a lot of other different kind of flows. What are they? So today we have a dedicated session for desktop flow. So desktop flow is, let's say, sort of like macro for desktop. So you have used, many of you have used Excel macro. So desktop flow, we have a dedicated session things. For example, you want to copy file from one folder to another folder. As soon as they are IBOT, then open that file, copy the content, paste it in a Word document, which you do manually. You can do it through desktop flow. You have a schedule option, right? Like cron job. So you can just say that if starting from today at 10 a.m. every month, it will kickstart, right? So if I, let's say, have user group meeting on every 20th of every month, maybe in the morning, I want to notify all the people or my group that, hey, there is a evening meetup happening today. Just a reminder. Okay, I know that. So I can run this email scheduler from the Power Automate. So I can just say schedule and automate instead of, let's say, triggering an automate, you can schedule and automate. So when you say schedule and automate, that means that it will kickstart whenever you want, right? So you can say that it's every month. You can say every week. We don't do user group meetings every week, but every month is more feasible, every minute, every second, like you might have done many cron job kind of thing, right? Where you put */1, which means that every minute, and then it has got 5 stars. So it's a standard Linux thing, right? So that's the kind of thing you can achieve through this schedule job. It's like a cron job, as normally we can. And there's a business process. So business process, many of you have gone through things like approval process. So when you, let's say, submit an expense to your manager, then it gets approved, right? And then how that manager knows that you have submitted some expense, because there is some automation which kickstarts, and then it finds who the manager is and then sends that expense to the manager, maybe an email to the link, and then when manager clicks on the email, it opens in an app, in a portal, and then manager sees that document and then sees the reason behind it, and he or she clicks on approve. Once that approval is done, it goes to the backend account system, who releases the money and sends the money to your bank account, which is registered with them. And then once that money is released, you get a notification saying that, hey, money is released, and then you go and check your bank account whether that money has come or not, right? So that's the kind of approval process. That's a typical business flow. It can be not only approval, it can be many different things. For example, a purchase order has been made, right? You approve that purchase order, it goes into the inventory and then checks, and all those things can happen, right? So think of that perspective, right? We haven't really talked about it. So In this Power Platform, it is tightly integrated with many different Microsoft services. One of them is the Dynamics 365, and Dynamics 365 is where all your business data gets stored, right? And then you want to automate, let's say, business process to do certain things. So if somebody enters a new customer, maybe you want to greet the customer. So you want to build a business flow, right? So you want to do that through that process. And as I talked about, let's say, you have many different templates available. You have email-based templates, so you can think of like when an email arrives, what happens. So there are many different use cases here. So I kind of did that. Twitter, you can also send an email from the Twitter as soon as the Twitter arrives to a mailbox, right? So if you're observing what Twitter is being posted by the user, so it's not possible for somebody to really sit in front of a Twitter uh, 24 by 7, 365 days to really observe what all Twitter specific to my company is coming. So you can automate these things. You can have multiple keywords search for and multiple hashtag, multiple at the rate thing. So all these things can be automated and then dumped together in a backend data lake so that you can do a later analysis of your data. And collecting data is important, right? So we can also have, let's say, backend data. And one of the things Power Platform really offers is called Dataverse, right? Earlier it was known as Common Data Services, which basically is, think of it like database in the cloud. You do not have to really worry about where my data is, how I create a database, who will get access to, all the security, safety, etc. is in place, and you just need to use that. So if you want to, let's say, capture this information in a relational database, you can use this. You can even use another connector to connect to, let's say, another relational database somewhere in the globe. So you can even have a SQL server in your local on-premises data center in the laptop I'm working from, and then use something called on-premises data gateway, which allows you to connect to the on-premises resources. So you can not only have things in cloud, but also have things in the on-premises kind of scenario, right? So you can
So
basically,
just a quick reminder, it's 11:24. I'm just reminding.
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we are almost there. So I just wanted to quickly touch on that. And it's all portal driven, which I wanted to encourage you all to really play with that. You don't need any installation. You just need to open a portal, have a login, and then play around with this Power Platform. There are many different Power Platform components available. So if you go to the, let's say, Power apps, which is also another component. So you see that Power Apps comes here, and then you can build an app in the browser. So it's all browser experience, no installation required, separate installation required for you to really play around with this thing. So I will pause here. We have 5 more minutes to go. I will pause here and open up for questions if you have any. So let me switch to the slide and then share you
Riju,
this.
there is a question. Uh,
Yeah.
you have built a Twitter connector based Power Automate, and he wants to know if it get refreshed or not.
Refreshed in the sense like the user
The
account.
data, the data will get refreshed at a regular interval, or how it is like that.
Okay, so if I understood the question correctly, by refresh you mean to say that how frequently it will go ahead and check. It's a poll mechanism, so it basically keeps observing the Twitter feed using the login I provided, and as soon as the login and the token is active, right, it will go ahead and check the Twitter, and it will find if there is any hash. And then how Twitter algorithm really works, I don't know, but you might not find the same hash all the time because there are hundreds and millions of people doing that tweet, right? And then it might pick up something randomly. So it is not guaranteed definitely in the Twitter connector that 5 people will get the same set of tweets if they try to observe that same hashtag in the Power Automate. So 5 people can get 5 different tweets because if, let's say, something which is critical happening at this moment and then everybody is tweeting, then it is very random, right? So that's a kind of uncertainty there, right? Because this is a public service, and then we do not have control. But in an enterprise kind of scenario, you definitely have to put a lot of logic, right? For example, you want to only capture, let's say, what are the new orders in last 1 hour. So you can have those kind of thing in the enterprise scenario, and then you can have those times and then filter out, and you will be assured with the number of actual data coming into your system by putting in the condition and the filter criteria, right? But for the social media, I don't see any guarantee that 5 people will get the same setup to it every time. 5 automations, I mean to say. Okay. Any other question? Let me just open the Q&A panel. People can come out of the mute and then ask question if you would like to talk, or else you can post the question in the chat window.